I'm Lexi Davis, a love embodiment coach who helps people create a love that feels like home, and I'm here to bring more romance and playfulness into the world. I'm also an international retreat host, vibe curator, and human connector. I serve people through my business, Alive to Enjoy, and this podcast where I invite guests from around the world to sprinkle their wisdom and expand your perspective so you can create the deepest love you possibly can reach in this lifetime. I also want you to live the most joyous life, whatever that looks like to you, and I hope that this slice of the internet brings you lots of smiles and helps you keep your heart open. Thank you for choosing Heart Snuggles to be in your ears each week, and I'm so glad you're here with me. Welcome, Heart Snugglers. We're so excited to have you here today, and I have a beautiful couple that I'm so excited to share with you. So go ahead and just tell them a little bit about yourself.
It's like that.
You get-
Hi. Hey guys. So hi, my name is Johan and I am married to this beautiful woman, Rachel Pringle.
Herb.
Herb. We are here to share with you guys some of the magic that we have experienced in our relationship, all the ups and downs, and the things that we have discovered that have unlocked deeper intimacy and love and connection and sensuality, sexuality, and power, passion, as well as universes that we didn't even know existed, which has been, I would say, maybe the most mind-blowing part of this journey. Yeah.
But the honeymoon stage is a false illusion that we are busting, and it gets better and better forever and ever. Indeed.
Yeah.
And it's felt from you guys. That's one of my favorite things about it. It's like palpable between you two. And so it's so embodied, and I'm so excited that you guys are so vulnerable about your story, because I feel like most relationships, we're just seeing the good as we know online. So I really am so grateful for you guys for being so vulnerable. So the first question of the podcast is, what was the last random act of kindness someone did for you?
Oh my gosh, I feel like you do that like all day, every day. I mean, I would say the random act of well, it's not random, I guess. This is a very good question.
I would say, are you asking like for between us, or it just randomly someone?
And it could
Like,
be between you or anybody, yeah.
mm. Well, I would say that we are in the practice of kindness every single day. That's one of our core practices is gratitude, and which equals kindness to me. And it's one of our practices that we don't skip. And so every day we spend a good amount of time really being grateful for each
And
other.
appreciating each other.
And what happens is over time, it just becomes your natural gear. And so it just spills out of you all the time. And we have now made it our practice, and something we also teach with, to our clients and students is acknowledge the little things.
Yeah.
Literally, like, thank you so much for, putting the dish towel over there. Thank you so much
Johann
for.
set up the entire our podcast studio that we've created in my parents' bedroom right now. So I feel it's not necessarily random, but he's so good at creating those things that make my life easier, which is such a wonderful thank you.
You're welcome, baby. So you got to get all pretty.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's pretty without the makeup too, but
I love it. And I have a question just before I go into the next one is, what if your partner feels like it's mechanical to do a daily practice of gratitude and it feels like, yeah, that's their response?
Such a good, I would say that's such a common response. I think that it's a deeper conversation because it is like learning a new skill or a new tool or working a new muscle. And in the beginning, it can feel uncomfortable. And the thing that I always like to say is Johan is really the leader in our gratitude practice. And we've been doing this practice daily for, let's say, almost 11 years. And I still have resistance. And so it's learning that resistance is not a bad thing. It's a normal thing that we all encounter in all different ways. And if we can use resistance to our advantage, we can notice that it is a growth edge. And so even though Johann's like, what are you grateful for? And I'm like, I don't feel like doing it today.
she goes, you go first.
Yeah, I'll say you go first. Whatever it is, it's learning that there is going to be a little bit of growth edge that we're going to go through. It doesn't mean we don't do it because the benefits outweigh the like 100x.
Yeah, and the thing is, to what Rachel just spoke to, and this is something that, we don't want to get out of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
Anything that's new or something that seems a little, oh, I don't know if I know how
Or
to
it's like
do it,
stupid or
or like
silly.
I'm not feeling it right
Yeah.
now. It's
Yeah.
not authentic right now.
Yes.
I'm not grateful right now.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's interesting when we just let that be what it is and be like, well, now's not the time, we're likely not going to get to it.
Yeah.
However, if we change the narrative in our mind about it and go like, ooh, this is actually an opportunity for me to shift my state,
Mm.
right? To become sovereign, to take control of this inner feeling right now that's I'm not grateful.
Hmm.
Can I actually take up this challenge and switch it up
Yeah.
and bring playfulness in it, right? And
Hmm.
just take a little baby step, and the next thing you know, you're like, wow,
Yeah. Yeah.
I've shifted my state. And that's the power and the beauty of this practice, that
Mm.
you literally teach yourself that it all happens inside,
Hmm.
and you can also shift it. It's not out there. You are the shifter. You are the one that creates the world as
As you
interpret
experience,
it and
yeah.
experience it.
And I would say also that noting that partners will have different leadership roles in the relationship. Like he leads this and has led it. And I have other areas that I lead it. And so instead of waiting around for your partner to change their mind, jump on board and lead them into it. Because Johan is his appreciation and gratitude is so infectious that it's kind of hard not to get pulled into it. And so even if I am kind of like me moody, he just brings me into his current and into his wave. And, next thing you know, I'm surfing that wave and, doubling
She
down.
won't quit. She's like,
Yeah.
she'll just keep going and going and going, And yeah, guys, help each other, become a team,
Yeah.
and take away the shaming, blaming, guilt, and you never want to do this with me, and you're a bad person, or you're down,
Yeah.
or lead,
Lead. Yeah, totally.
invite by changing your state, because we have mirror neurons. We
Yes.
immediately begin to match what our partner is doing. And so if both of us are feeling meh,
Yeah.
one of us decides to shift it, the likelihood is that our partner is also going to really feel the shift.
Yeah.
Bada bang. Yep.
Bing, bada, boom, how you doing, man?
So good. So, I would love for you to share your relationship history with the people who don't know your journey, however much you want to share about it. I know it's a big story, so in summary, maybe.
Oh my goodness gracious me. Well, I'll give a summarized version. We've been together almost 12 years now. It's been an incredible, profound, and powerful journey. And I would say that we came together in a really deep soul space. I think it was a different type of connection than either of us had experienced before. It was different than this like wham bam, like, oh, I love you, I have to have you. It was
We were definitely not trauma bonding.
yeah, we created and had a lot of safety and serenity from the very beginning. There's a lot of ease, which I think was definitely new for both of us and also was a little bit uncomfortable. In times, I would say for him, he was probably used to more of a fiery, perhaps more dramatic connection. At that time, I was 26 at the time. I'm 38 now. So I was a totally different human. And I was definitely not as nearly as connected and rooted in my power and in my darkness and in my feminine leadership. So we went on this crazy, wild journey of exploring with being open and, experiencing other people. And we didn't have full transparency or great communication. And even though, considering what happened, we did a pretty damn good job. Yeah. We went through some ups and downs. And right after we got engaged, right before our 4-year anniversary, Johann fell in love with another woman, which thrust me into a relationship with another married couple. And we had a massive catalyst opening portal that was the best thing that's literally ever happened to us.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. And I will add to that beginning part of the story is like the story basically begins with avoidant meets a secure,
Yeah.
and all of like me being the avoidant. And then, I know a lot of folks out there, especially men, really relate to this avoidant, tendency. And Rachel just wouldn't give up on love.
Mm-hmm.
And normally I would find a way as an avoidant to create distance,
Mm-hmm.
push people away or go into my stories. And she just wouldn't give up on love because she was really a stand for this incredible love that we have cultivated. And through that was able to help me melt, all these walls of ice and fear. And there was so much of me that was acting unconsciously.
Yeah.
And this rupture that she talks about at year 4 was really a moment for us to die a death. All of that crazy unconscious patterning that a lot of us carry, and then hold each other through it. And it wasn't just like wham bam done, right? It took a while, and it's still ever evolving now. But that was the moment that really, like, we became who we are now. Basically, the seed versions of what we have now grown into was that moment. And so, to you guys out there who are in a relationship or going through a tough time, just want to tell you guys, it doesn't mean something is bad or wrong, or that moment shouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
What we have learned is, without that moment,
Yeah.
we wouldn't get to die a death of these younger versions and traumatized versions of ourselves,
Or asleep versions of
yeah.
ourselves.
And it's with the stakes being so high and so crazy that we actually move out of the comfort zone into the unknown, and in the unknown is where the magic is. And so that's something that we are so passionate about teaching. There's so much of out there that's like, if somebody cheats or if somebody does this, like, you got to get out, it's over,
I mean,
it's done.
in the
And
beginning of like before, I was like, oh, if someone cheats, I'm out. But there's so many different things that are happening. And the other aspect of this that I think is important to talk about is like our connection wasn't always fully like melding sexually. We were having good sex from the beginning, but we were again both not fully expressed in our sexuality. We weren't talking about the subject that I think most people feel scared to talk about. And this experience forced us into having those really challenging conversations, like the breakup conversations, and then led us on this incredible, amazing journey of our sexuality that I think most people, again, don't talk about, because I think for so many of us, we're looking for this connection where the sexuality is insatiable. And oftentimes that is met with a relationship that isn't sustainable. So you're keeping it because the sex is so good, but you don't feel safe, and you don't feel respected, or it's not moving forward. And I think one of the most powerful things for us to realize is that this type of sexuality, chemistry, polarity, and passion is something that you can cultivate. And is much, I believe, and from my direct experience, from my perspective, is much more satisfying when it's not just on a whim, but is something that you've cultivated together, and is like a portal that just keeps going and going and going. Yeah.
So good. So I just want to ask, just before we talk about this rupture, what did the avoidant look like to you? Like, how is that showing up in partnership, and what was that actually protecting? Like, how is that protecting you from love?
so the way that it showed up for me was that I was just deathly afraid of intimacy. So anytime, even with a friend, if it got to a place of like feeling really intimate, really vulnerable, I would find a way unconsciously to dissipate that, to ruin it, to destroy the intimacy, usually by humor, saying, utilizing humor in a very sarcastic way, saying something inappropriate, and all of a sudden closeness would go away. People would be like, oh, and I'd be like, ooh, I feel in charge again, I feel comfortable again now. Like, it was getting a little too, and again, like, I didn't know any of this. I didn't know that I was doing that. But gosh, the amount of times I put my foot in my mouth and said looking back, some just crazy stuff, and how people must have just been like, Johan is a shit show. Like, he will just if he says stuff, just try to ignore it.
Yeah.
But I'd make sure that it was big enough that they couldn't,
Yeah.
And it was just, I didn't believe that anyone could hold me. And so my belief was that I would always have to hold myself. And so I would not let anybody really in, because I'd be like, if I let them in, they're going to hurt me, or they're going to leave me, or they're going to somehow manipulate me. That was a story I had going on with women. It was like, oh, you're going to get in there, and then you're going to like manipulate me and use me. I'll lose my center, all this like disempowering beliefs that would come up. And again, Rachel was able to really call me out on that. And I was good at making it about the other person. I was not able to take responsibility at all. Like, I did not know how to take responsibility. And yeah, it's been quite the journey, my friends.
Yeah, and so Rachel, my question for you is, so how did you open up him as an avoidant, and when that feeling of like feeling like you can't love them too much because if you love them too much, they pull away, how did you
Mhm.
navigate that space?
Yeah, I think we were just musing on this the other day. It's like when this was happening for us, attachment theory wasn't even a thing. So it's like we didn't even know
It
this.
was a thing, we just didn't know
We
about it.
just didn't know about it. We didn't know these theories. And so for me, one of the things that I always like to come back to is the difference between listening and hearing. So hearing what someone is saying verbatim, just their words, versus listening to where the thread of these words come from. And so I'm a very observant, intuitive person. I'm witnessing and watching, all the time. That's my way of integrating and ingesting what's happening around me. And so witnessing him, I recognized what was in the space coming from his childhood, what he was holding on to, what he was protecting. And of course, it was challenging because I come from the opposite experience. I come from a very open, very loving, like overly loving family. And so I had to see those differences and ride that wave and really continue to believe in our love with the element of Johann continued to reach in to what he said. It wasn't, he was very interested and has always been interested in other people, like asking the
Mhm.
deep questions, wanting to go deep. But when it comes to depth with him, there was a little bit of protection. And so the space was available. And what I experienced, I just wouldn't quit on. I just knew that there was something different.
You're not a quitter, baby.
I'm not a quitter. I'm really not. And I felt the elements of, safety and respect and fun and trust, even in the turmoil. We kept on showing up to the mat or showing up to the dojo. I truly believe that it was the perfect dovetail experience for me to really strengthen my own center and core and to work on my own aspects of people pleasing and, you know, abandoning myself for others and taking things personally and to step in and realize, oh, this is not about me.
Yeah.
This is not necessarily about us either. This is coming from his childhood. There's an aspect of him that doesn't trust and believe. And I can see the part of him that wants to trust and believe.
Mm,
That's a parent. And I'm going to focus on that versus what's not working
mm,
and being able to continue to address it. And through this experience, we're so blessed. The other thing that's important to say that we had our practice from the very beginning. We've always shared a practice from the very first moment of meeting. And so having that space to come back to
mm.
and work out what's happening inside of us and then have the willingness to express about it. We were very brave and courageous to go through such a messy, chaotic experience with a lot of grace despite it.
Yeah.
Mm. Yes, so thank you for sharing that. And now going to that messy part, how did you know to choose that this was something to work through versus not? Because I'm sure everyone you talk to is like, leave him, and yeah, that space.
Yeah, there's a few aspects. Number one, I was so clear on who I spoke to about this.
Mhm.
And I didn't speak to a lot of people about it. I spoke to two people in the very beginning, and then that circle grew to like four people. And I knew that the people I spoke to could hold both of us
Mm,
in grace. And I think that that's massively important. That's something that we tend to do is talk to someone who can't hold what we're experiencing. And then knowing, I knew intuitively that they would project their own fear, their own experiences, their own trauma. And then I would end up needing to hold them versus what I was
mm,
experiencing. So that was first. And then the second thing, because I really love this question, is it's really nuanced. There were many, many moments when both of us did not know. It wasn't, like Johan said, this instant thing that we handled. It was, couple years of really being in this unfolding and
mm,
trusting moment to moment versus becoming attached to what we thought it was supposed to be or supposed to look, but showing up to the mat every
mm,
single day and really, again, showing up to our practice. And I believe that it transfers to every challenging moment in our life
mm,
is the willingness to be able for me to be able to be like, I don't know what's going on right now, and I know it's not time to leave yet.
Yeah.
And ask the question, why do I know it's not time to leave? Right? Am I leaving because I'm scared that I'm never going to find anyone good enough for me? Those stories. But the reason why I kept staying is because he kept showing up, and because when I was in his arms, I felt safe and at home. And I remember this very specific moment when we were in the midst of a really big fight, and I was so angry with him, and he was holding me from behind. And even though I was angry, I still felt at home. I felt safe. I was like, this is my home. And so I said this to another girlfriend recently, is I also really liked who I was becoming through this process. So I wasn't becoming less of myself or disempowered or small. I was becoming more of myself. I was becoming more empowered. I was becoming more honest, more clear, more in my leadership, more in my like challenging him. And so I liked who I was becoming. I liked who he was becoming. Of course, there was still fear, and I was still scared, and there was parts of me that didn't trust, but I was enjoying, oddly enough, the experience because of what was taking place. And I think those are some really important
I would
aspects.
say that this really called Rachel forward,
Yeah.
and called her forward into her mastery, going from this people pleasing, wanting everything to be okay,
Yeah.
and avoiding conflict,
Mm-hmm.
to really learning to know where her center is,
Yeah.
not avoiding conflict,
Yeah.
and seeing that conflict actually is an opportunity to really call people forward,
Mm-hmm. And I'm
instead of
actually
enable them
really
to
good at
yeah,
it.
you're great at it.
Great at it.
And now she's like,
Now I'm like,
give me some conflict.
I feel like there's no hard conversation that I can't have with anyone,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which before I was deathly afraid of confrontation.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think most people can relate to that.
Yeah.
Confrontation is scary.
Yeah.
That's AF. So that's where the tools come in, is like, how do we have the tools in the moment to speak to something that is occurring in such a way that we're not blaming, shaming, guilt, and projecting,
Mm-hmm.
taking responsibility and creating intimacy and safety and trust through that moment. That's like the sweet spot of growth and expansion
Mm-hmm.
in with any relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what do you do in those moments when you bring up something and your partner gets defensive?
Mm.
Yeah.
I think that the first place to start is how you bring it up. I think that, again, it's not as widely spoken about, but the way that you address something, the way that you deliver something. I would say when you talk to, we work with so many couples, and we come up against pretty much the same things over and over again. Delivery is one of the biggest things that we can work with, is how you present something. Is it an opening, an invitation, or is it a projection, or a trap, right? And that's it comes with body language, it comes with cadence, it comes with tonality, and I believe active loving, right? Contractions, we are an opportunity to actively love someone, open into the moment.
Mm.
And then when they're becoming defensive, to not take that on and not take it personally, to realize when he would become defensive, which was part of his, I guess, triggered space, that was the perfect opportunity for me to realize that this is not about me. He's scared. And so if I can in that moment take a pause and really recognize, okay, he's feeling X, Y, and Z, vulnerable, scared, fearful, and integrate that into my own physical being and drop back even more and create even more safety, then we can work on it together. Like, well, I can feel a part of you is perhaps, a little bit scared or confused right now. Do you want to talk about it? I'm here. I'm not trying to drive us apart. I want to actually create more connection. And so that is I think for us, it's an art, and it is a skill, and it is, I believe, the most worthy art and skill you can ever learn.
Mm. I'd say the big thing is, usually when something comes up, we immediately go what the other person did wrong.
Mm-hmm.
We blame them or shame them or guilt them, or, we're expressing that you did something wrong, versus saying, hey, I want to own and take responsibility that a part of me got really triggered by this moment. A part of me got really hurt. So we're skipping the step of blaming someone, and just owning how it made us feel in the moment. And that immediately allows the other person to not bring out their shield and sword and go to battle with us, but
Mm-hmm.
actually be like, oh my gosh, wow, I'm sorry, or, whatever. It helps us, again, come to the table and actually see if we can repair
Yeah.
is by owning,
Mm-hmm.
not blaming. And
Mm-hmm.
that's it's like you're doing a 180 there
Yeah.
because 99% of the people are, it's your fault. You
Mm-hmm.
did something wrong. And then obviously it's going to be a battle because somebody has to be right and somebody has to be wrong
Mm-hmm.
in order to be a resolution. And in a couple, you only win if you both win.
Yeah.
And so that's something, again, that we're not really taught and we don't understand. And when we shift them, we call it the relationship operating system and create our own operating system, utilizing a lot of the tools that we teach, it all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's so easy.
Mm-hmm.
Conflict's easy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, it only takes like a couple of minutes versus, several days or
Or
weeks to
weeks.
go move through like one little moment. You're like, how are we still mad at each other? Like,
Yeah.
wow. And so it really is, like Rachel said, it's such an incredible tool because it makes your life so spacious and allows for so much love and flow of energy that is healing and then becomes your normal. And
Yeah.
you're no longer repeating the pattern of your parents or, your culture or
Mm-hmm.
beliefs, but you realize that you're creating your own pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, really empowering and incredible.
Yeah, and for me now it's an indicator of like, oh, okay, I might have just communicated not in the best way. He's getting defensive. I am going to take some responsibility here. So, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And another piece I want to add to this, which I find I have struggled with so much and so many women, is how to create a safe space for your man. Because when he shares something and you shut down every time because what you're hearing him say is not nice or not something you want to hear, how do you actually not shut down as a woman and create a safe space for your man to be vulnerable?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that there are two aspects. One is the having the depth of awareness to realize that everything is our own perspective and experience. So when you are connecting with any other person, you are not just connecting with them in the moment, you're connecting with every single experience they've ever had in their entire lives.
Mm.
And so when we can like really get that into our being over and over again, it helps us not take things personally and helps us to what Johan just said, when we take ownership and when we can invite in where our own trigger and ownership stems from, we give our partners and whatever people we're relating to an opportunity to do that as well. And when our partner is doing that, like it's coming from that depth of experience. And if we can also own, I'm witnessing a part of me that's shutting down, and I want to own that. And I want to own that it's connected to my own story around this, and this, right? Because then it's offering into the space. And then the other aspect that I think is really interesting for women is with Johan, he was always very honest, even in moments when I wish that he wouldn't be.
Mhm.
And even though that was challenging at times, it allowed me to trust his word. And it allowed me to know that he wasn't going to not say the thing in order to protect me, that he would rather say the thing than be false. And so if you guys as couples, partnership, or however that molecule is, commit to that, that actually can create trust over time, that we're committing to saying the thing even if it, part of you shuts down, and then the other person gets to take ownership from that and actually bring in where that comes in from, because that's the thing that we're actually really craving, is a depth of understanding. I want to know, we all want to know why we are the way that we are. Why is my partner the way that he is? What makes them tick? And when their spaciousness for the depth of story to come in, we feel so much more calm. So if the ownership happens in that moment, okay, witness, a part of me is shutting down because I'm making up this and story, but I really want to create the safety because I do want to hear what you have to say, even if a part of me doesn't like it. The bigger part of me wants to know how you really feel, because that's what's most important. A man really hasn't, it's not really a lot of opportunity to hear that, would you say?
Well, I want to speak to that too, which is it goes both ways. If we, and Omar Pani has this beautiful term, it's like, how expensive
Yeah.
do you make it for the other person for you to express yourself? So to answer your question, like if you as a woman or, are asking your man for something and then he shares something vulnerable, something that you don't maybe want to hear And if you then shame, blame, guilt in the moment, it's very likely he's never going to do it again because he's going to go in his brain is like, oh, that wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
Like I now finally opened up and now she's using this vulnerability against me. And especially if you do a callback to it again and again and again, and oh, you said the thing, you know. So it's like there's no reason now for you to open because it's unsafe.
Yeah.
So creating the safety is so important. Even when we hear something that is difficult and challenging, to thank our partner for the courage of having said that,
Yeah.
which immediately is affirming and going like, thank you so much for having the courage to say the most uncomfortable thing, this thing that might even lead us to break up. And again, it's having the courage to have the conversations that are so challenging is actually the way through into this next level of deep relationship where you deeply trust each other, even in the moments of the utmost rupture and contraction.
My love, you've built a life, you've built the career, you've built the success. But when it comes to love and softening and receiving, you're always the one in control, always thinking, planning, and doing. What if you didn't have to? Soft Girl Season is your invitation to melt into life where you feel safe, supported, and adored, where you actually can trust men, trust God, and trust yourself. Inside, women have found their dream partners, started receiving clients with less effort, and watched their men step up to pamper, cherish, and adore them, all by learning how to soften into their feminine energy. They've gone from feeling numb and guarded to magnetic, deeply loved, and radiant. So if you're ready to stop over-functioning and start being treated like a queen, come inside Soft Girl Season and let yourself be the woman who has it all. Join us using the link in the show notes and receive instant access and start being provided for by God and men. Yeah, so good. And it's always so funny how it's always just the simplest little bits of communication that we're not adding in. It's like, I'm terrified to say this, or hearing that is really hard. Instead, we just, our trauma response just completely takes over. So I love that. Yeah, even when I implement that, like just seeing the shift and the difference and keeping us so that we both don't shut down because it's really hard when you both shut down and then, yeah, you get into that pattern.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
been there a lot, and it
Mhm.
sucks.
Yeah.
And worth going through, you
Yes.
know? Yeah.
It's really, for me, what I realize again is when you're in a relationship, you are a team. Like the
Yeah.
other night, we were in a bit of a rupture, and Rachel was actually, even though she got triggered, and then I got triggered, she was able to help me because I was just like, I'm not talking. I'm tired. I want to go to bed. And she was able to still ask questions and come forward and like help me navigate that moment. She could have easily blamed me. There was a little bit of blaming, but then she also was able to own, right? And so what I'm saying this is like we're not going to be 50-50 always,
Yeah.
right? Or it's like help each other. Do your best to show up for your partner. And at the moment that we go from like being a victim and
Yeah.
mad to like, how can I serve? You immediately shift the energy.
What's
And
the
it's so empowering. So like, yeah, what's the overall goal? Like connection,
Yeah.
right? How do I get there? Instead of just, I'm gonna choose to just be here quietly fuming and
Seething,
like,
yeah. And I think that the one of the most important things to remember is that perfection is not the goal, right? Like we're not in a perfect relationship,
Excuse me?
We are both committed deeply and have the willingness to come back to devotion over and over again. That's what makes it so good because I think the deeper aspect of realizing that we are all here to grow and expand and evolve. And that is complicated and messy and confusing. It's a wild, mysterious experience. And so you really, like Johan said, need to be teammates and to have the willingness to not be like taking score of each other, but to actually support each other and be 70-30 at times or 80-20 or 40-60. It doesn't matter. What matters is your goal of connection, of coming back to self, of learning about each other, of taking care of each other. And when you do that over time, I think it only gets more mysterious. Then you have a strength in your foundation that really allows you to feel like you can take on anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And what if when you start to share and you're being vulnerable, your partner is meeting your feelings or vulnerability with logic?
Mm. You don't know
Well,
nothing about
that's
that.
never happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the thing that was really effective for me was that Rachel wasn't trying to do that.
Mm.
She bypassed the logic and went straight to the heart. And so my invitation for you guys out there, if you're a man or a woman, usually it's a man is more in his head, woman is more in her heart. So if your guy is just trying to like be logical and intellectualize everything, place your hand on his heart
Or your heart.
or your heart, but it,
Mm-hmm.
it could be like harder to, talk
Mm-hmm.
when you're like but if
Mm-hmm.
you just place your hand on his heart, maybe another hand on your own heart,
Mm-hmm.
just that act alone, and then be like, can we just take a breath together right now? You know, because the man is likely in a trauma response, in a, trying to intellectualize, trying to win, trying to
Mm-hmm.
hide, and he doesn't know how to get to this place. And so what Rachel did for me is she just went underneath all the castle defenses that I had built and touched my heart over and over and over
And
and
I
over
didn't
again.
try to, I think the aspect of this that's important is I didn't try to meet him in his logic.
Yeah.
That's not a place that we're going to win because, we're built differently. And what I see often is the way that society has sort of conditioned us and programmed us is that we are sort of switching roles. Again, we all have masculine, feminine inside of us. But if we as a woman become more reliant on our masculine, then we try to battle with our mind, it becomes it's not enjoyable. It
No.
doesn't feel good. I have tried that. It doesn't work. And
Hmm.
so I think to what Johan is expressing is for us to realize that we can guide them back to their heart. And that doesn't also mean become irrational or overly emotional, because it doesn't create safety, right? It's learning how to take that sacred pause, how to take ownership, how to, pull on that thread and reconnect what it's bringing up in you, hold space for what it's bringing up in then, and come back to center, come back to the heart space. And to what Johan said, if I can't reach for his heart, I'll reach for my own. And I will actively take that sacred pause and bring my awareness down from my head into my heart and say, how can I express this so that he can actually really
Hmm.
feel me versus be in that battle? And again, it's an art form.
And in the beginning, sadly, it took a lot moments where Rachel really had to like break down
Yeah.
in order for me to get out of my head and
Yes.
actually like start feeling compassion. I was so stuck in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just go on and on and on and
Yeah, the
on and
mental
on,
battle.
and
Yeah.
I would like refuse,
Yeah.
just refuse
Oh gosh.
to not be right.
Yeah.
And then I would see her crumble,
Yeah.
or I wouldn't even say that maybe it felt like crumble in the beginning, but I think what you learned was like
Yeah.
when you expose, like you
My
share
deepest,
your
my deepest
deepest
heart.
hurt
Yeah.
and heart with
Yeah.
me, that, and it was like felt like torture to
Yeah.
you. However, that was a way for me to actually drop into my heart and be like, oh my God, is this what I really want?
Yeah.
Do I want my wife, my partner,
Yeah.
to be a puddle on the floor, like wailing, crying? Is this what I want?
Mm-hmm.
And so in some ways, you ladies out there really are the holders of the heart energy.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it sucks, like, and it's so painful for sometimes for the man to really understand, or to be able to get out of his head, if you are able to open your heart and expose your heart and share your hurt from this place,
Yeah.
I think that is some of the best medicine that, we can
Ever. Yeah.
feel,
Yeah.
even though it's so hard for you guys. It's like sometimes that's what we need in order to be like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think that, and in that revealing, because it's really like revealing like your deepest heart, your deepest hurt, not with like extreme chaos, because again, that doesn't serve, but it's like like opening up the heart space to show what his actions are creating so that he can get it out of the mind and feel it, and for him to actually see and make a change, right? If we play that role over and over again, if he keeps not changing, then you can roll into like a toxic relationship,
Mm.
right? For Johan, every time, because it was important for me to also reveal myself and for me not to just play like I have it all together, I'm the most loving all the time. Like I am also hurt and I have feelings. That was again the perfect dovetail experience. The more that I was vulnerable and realized that that was a superpower and that was powerful to draw him forward, not from chaos or overly emotions, but from real true transparency and ownership of self, that called him forward. And each time that we did that, and I remember these moments so like deeply, we got closer and closer together, and he got away from his pattern, I got away from my pattern. We kept on coming towards each other. So for those who are hearing this, there's nuances to this. You have to be aware of your own type of dynamic in relationship, where if you're the only one or they're the only one, like it has to be a joint experience. We can't do this work for our partner. It's literally impossible. So if the person and you keep showing up, that's when it gets really, really good.
Yeah, so if your partner is not meeting you in those moments when you're sitting there and you're vulnerable, how do you navigate that? Like if they're still in this really like frozen state where they can't, like when you were describing, so defensive.
I think that in these moments there's timing,
Mhm.
right? And from my perspective, again, this is just my direct experience. It took us years to work through this. And it wasn't like, we were experiencing such beautiful moments as well. But it was as we deepened in intimacy, right? The avoidant would come up. It would also flare me into an anxious or disorganized experience at times. And so there was a time to unravel this. It wasn't an immediacy. And then there was the moment, which was, say 4.5 years in, where I expressed that if he didn't give me full access to his heart, that I was done.
Mm.
And that was the right time to have that conversation. I didn't demand that before we and he was ready for that, because what I tend to see is that people get into relationships. You're in a relationship for a couple months and you're demanding certainty and you're demanding full access, when we are much more complex human beings than that. We have so much that we're working with. And I think it's much more beneficial to us to get curious about what we're working with versus what we're not getting,
Mm.
right? That's going to create so much more trust and safety. And in that moment when I invited him forward, it was the moment. And I was like, I want full access, I want full intimacy, I want your full commitment, or I am out of here.
Yep.
And I meant that. It wasn't like I was going to put in a false ultimatum and then stick around. So
Yeah.
it was, yeah.
I would also say that what's really, really helpful is breaking the pattern.
Yeah.
So practices are really, really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
To get out of this loop, to do a practice together, which is somatic practice, not like, oh, we're gonna try to meditate and your mind is like, fuck you, fuck, I hate you, like rah, rah, rah. But a somatic practice where we utilize pyramid breath a lot, or shaking, or just pillow beating and screaming,
Mm-hmm.
going outside and just like, just
Mm-hmm.
something to move the energy. Or maybe do something that's like really kind of silly, like, okay, let's just be like dogs barking
Yeah.
and cats meowing for the
Yeah.
next 5 minutes,
Yeah.
but you somehow get out of that. Adding in a practice is really, really potent.
Yeah. So powerful.
And for the men especially who have a harder time getting into the body and getting into the emotions, it allows them to drop from the intellect into the physical body. And for the guys, especially if they can like beat on a pillow,
Mm-hmm.
if they can scream or scream into a pillow,
Yeah.
it allows all of this emotion that we don't know how to put words to, how to express it, an avenue to just move. And then when we get the rage and the confusion and the anger and the sadness a bit out of the way, underneath that is love and a
Yeah.
desire for connection.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Yeah, so that's a really great point. I think because in those moments you feel it, right? You're both like, oh, there's so much energy. And then you feel each other hurting each other. And it's like, this is not serving us. So I like that practice. And there are male listeners. So I'm curious of what else helped you to drop into your heart besides just Rachel in those moments.
Mm-hmm.
Practice.
Yeah.
right? That was one of the biggest things. And like Rachel said, we shared a practice from day one.
Mm.
And I think, so many couples out there in the world are not sharing a practice, and people just in general don't have a practice. Like, what does that mean? I'm scrolling on my phone, I'm watching TVs, people's
Or
practice,
they go work out.
and working out is great. Actually, it's great because you're moving your body. However, you're not consciously
Mhm.
going like, I'm going to do this in order to move energy consciously and then
Mm-hmm.
fill myself with creative energy or
Mm-hmm.
love energy, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's a more of an unconscious thing that you do. But when we add the awareness and the consciousness in there and the intention in there and going, I'm going to scream my face off for the next 5 minutes. I'm going to beat a pillow like it's going out of style. And then I'm going to take a moment to come to stillness, activate my breath, and invite love to flow into me. Game changer,
Mm-hmm.
right? And again, like I see this every day. I'm working with, guys that are full avoidant. They come to me, they're like, brother, like, I admire you, your relationship, like, help me. And I'm like, awesome, let's do it. And in a very short amount of time, they're like, how did I not know this? Like, it's so easy. It's wow. So these are super, super simple, super effective practices. They don't take a long time. They're not hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's just about having an awareness there is such a thing and then actually practicing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And another thing is for those folks that are very, very intellectual, it can be very hard to receive a reflection from your partner. So seek out a coach, read a book, listen
Mm-hmm.
to a podcast, get
Mm-hmm.
it from somewhere else where it's not as charged up,
Yeah. Yeah.
someone that you admire, someone who has accolades, someone who's in a successful
Mm-hmm.
relationship.
Friend you
And,
trust. Yeah.
and what's their magic and have them share it with you. So it doesn't need to just come from your partner. In
Mm-hmm.
time, you'll learn to trust each other deeply. And so you can give the really sensitive reflections.
Mm-hmm.
But in the beginning, like I was not really taking stuff. Whenever I was like, yeah, right. And then I would, read about it through Esther Perel or Brene Brown. I'd be like, gosh, they're kind of saying the same thing that Rachel is saying. And only then I was able to connect and be like, oh, wow, you're really wise and you have such deep emotional intelligence and you're actually my teacher. But in the beginning, I was like, you know. So I feel like it's a very normal pattern as well with
Yeah.
dudes.
Yes, 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 definitely experienced that. I love this so much. And I did want to touch on I think this is another huge element is the trust piece. Like, how do you trust after a huge rupture, like cheating, and building that, yeah, like rebuilding that foundation?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is one of the questions that we get asked the most. And I think that for me as well, it is such a beautiful bridge into a deeper state of awareness.
Mm.
What makes you trust anyone,
Mm.
right? It's not a blanket thing that you decide, okay, I trust this person, and that's what happens. You trust someone because they are consistent,
Mhm.
right? They show up in a very particular way over and over and over again. And so you learn to trust if you encounter a tree that someone says that's a mango tree. You don't trust that it's a mango tree until you see that it is bearing fruit,
Mhm.
right? Okay, now I understand that this is what this is. And so I always come back to the awareness that trust, like love, is an action. It is a muscle. It is a verb. It's something that we do and we cultivate. And to what Johan said before, we have the power to make meaning. That is something we all possess, and it is one of the most powerful things that we possess. And I knew that I could create the story that he wasn't to be trusted, and that it would facilitate an experience that I didn't enjoy,
Yeah.
right? Or I could choose to see what was happening in front of me, that there was a person who kept on showing up in his actions and in his words, and they matched, right? And I could choose to trust that he had learned and I had learned. This is not just, him, me as well. That's I believe the act is like, of course, we need the person's words and actions to match.
Mhm.
And it has to be consistent. Something I think both Johan and I really focus on is consistency in our, and I would say all of our close friends would say that about us, that we are consistent, the way that we show up for years. And after a period of time, your body learns to trust that. It took time.
Mhm.
It took time. It wasn't an immediate thing. There was lots of moments where I wasn't sure, where he wasn't sure, and we had to hold each other in that uncertainty with love and with tender care for the trust to build over time. And now I can firmly say that I trust him with every single part of my being, even though there was many, many moments in our past where we both were deeply out of integrity.
Got you right where I want.
Me too.
Yeah, to what Rachel was saying, it really is, it's a choice.
Yeah.
And when we realize that we are the ones that make meaning out of everything, it's so incredibly empowering when we choose to make meaning out of our story, going like, we truly believe that we have, as souls, as spirits, before this lifetime, we were like, we want to have this experience.
Mm-hmm.
And we cast the right people. The stakes needed to be so freaking high in order for us to go through it in the way that we did, so that our identities were, so we could question our identity, we could question our stories, our meaning making, going like, is this actually the best version of ourselves? And is there more?
Mm-hmm.
And so when these events happen, most of us, again, tell a story about it or make meaning about it. This is wrong, this is bad. And when we switch the story, then you realize that without this experience, you could never cultivate this type of trust.
Mm-hmm.
If the trust hasn't been broken, you don't know that, and then repaired and then cultivated into something really profound. You actually don't trust as deeply,
Yeah.
because you're like, oh, it's good. Like, we're good, obviously we'd never do anything. And then something happens and it's so devastating.
Yeah.
Because, and again, like, if in that moment you create a story that this is bad, this is wrong, I'm out, they're bad, I'm bad, whatever, you're missing an opportunity to go deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this is in all layers of life,
Yes.
all the time. It's like, do we embrace life as an opportunity to expand and grow and say yes to more? Or are we just like, no,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just a choice. Which one is right or wrong is it's really up to you. How do you want your life to look like and feel like?
Mm-hmm.
We choose the empowerment way.
Yeah, empowerment. How would you say, like, what is the effects of trusting? Like, where are you guys at now that you have this full trust? How are you able to show up and be and yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's so we were just talking about this the other day. We briefly saw a little clip of a podcast of a relationship expert talking about how like you keep you couples keep secrets
Yeah, you should keep secrets from each other.
and we were just don't agree with that because we have had the experience of keeping secrets and we have now the experience of full transparency of being able to say literally anything to each other. And what that has cultivated in our relationship is so much passion. It's so much connection. It's so much like my whole being gets to fully surrender and fully relax into this container, which allows me to experience so much more, right? In terms of, I think I'll speak specifically sexually, because I think that's something that all of us in relationship are desiring. We want to expand our sexuality, want to keep growing. And when there is trust, like this level of trust and safety, like Johan said, when you've gone through moments and you know that you've got each other, that's also the perfect foundation for deeper aspects of our sexuality or sensuality to be expressed because it is a very mysterious world to go into. There's portals upon portals. And if you know that you've gone through something with a person, you know that you can, okay, I'm going to touch that edge that feels scary. And you can feel energetically that the person has got you and you've got them and you can explore and experiment with these places that are perhaps a little bit scarier or not as widely spoken about. And it's just been such an incredibly fruitful and magnificently expansive and delicious experience that keeps happening.
Yeah, and so I think what you're also asking, if I'm understanding correct, is it allows us to be in really playful spaces with other people. It allows us to go to retreats on learned tantra. It
Yeah.
allows us to put ourselves in situations that might be for most people
Yeah.
very triggering.
Very, yeah.
And because they're unexpressed, they're like, I'm not jealous, but really you're really fucking jealous. Or, like, I don't care, but really you really, really care.
Yeah.
And then when you're in a situation that's dynamic and moving and you're like, oh, my partner doesn't care. And then you're doing something, interacting with someone. It could just simply be a look at someone. And then all of a sudden they're like,
yeah.
and then like everything is ruined, everything blows up. And so because we are fully expressed, are able to put ourselves in situations now where in the beginning I spoke about these other universes that we're experiencing. And we are on this incredible soulmate training path with our teacher, Mananda Sarita. And some of the practices are they're very edgy and expansive. And because we feel like we got each other, we're able to go into these practices and discover layers of the universe, multiverse experience that we literally didn't know that even existed before. And then it feels like you are the divine making love with the divine. And which is like endless, infinitely interesting, mystical, magical, mind blowing, where afterwards you're like,
whoa,
what was that? And it's just allowing that energy to flow through you. And so we're so excited to be living embodiments of like, guys, like full transparency with skill and elegance is the way. When you don't have secrets and you fully trust each other is the way. Doesn't mean that you're not going to have, there's so much mystery waiting for you that's beyond your ego and identity.
Yes.
When you're ready to like let that go, there is literally
endless
mystery that's
and
just ready.
we can feel it, we can feel it. It's all of us, whether we consciously are aware of it or can put words to it, we can sense it. We're all energetic beings. And so we really feel that is so much of what's standing in the way. And it's because we just don't know how to do it because, of our conditioning and all the things. But yeah, it's great now.
It's awesome.
It's working.
Yeah.
I recommend. And that brings up a topic of when you are, as a woman, coming more into your sensuality and you're expressing that and you're dressing in some way and your partner's trying to like suppress that and gets fearful of it and says like you're putting yourself at danger or you're not respecting him. How do you navigate that?
It's a deep conversation to be had, right? Because there's someone doesn't just exist that way. They're made that way. So what are the ingredients that created that outcome, right? And there are aspects to it that are important to talk about, right? For both of us, masculine, feminine, whoever's in the dynamic. If you are expressing your sexuality in a leaky context, that is going to create dissonance in the relationship. It's not going to feel
leaky,
good.
meaning irresponsible.
Yeah, irresponsible, like, which is, you're
unaware,
you're pushing your energy out into people. I think, all of us have had that experience with a man or a woman. You know what it feels like, and it doesn't feel good. And so there's a difference between a man feeling that, or he's insecure because of something he's learned or his culture or his upbringing or whatever it is,
or he's been cheated on,
or he's been cheated on. And so it's like it's having that deeper conversation and to investigate where that seed actually was planted and what are the things that watered it to get us here. Because my partner before Johan was very jealous of me, and it was his own insecurity because there was literally nothing happening. He was jealous of the one guy who was a very good looking guy, but I was like, I don't want to touch. This person is a friend. It was so clear. I knew it wasn't about me, and so it was addressing that. Whereas with Johan, he was the opposite. He was like, "Why are you wearing clothes?
Why are you wearing clothes? Take them off.
Take them off. You should be wearing. You should be showing off your beautiful body." And so it's being able to have that conversation and understand where that's coming from and create safety to repair it.
Yeah, I would add to that it's really, for us, what really works is when you feel you're on the same team.
Yeah.
And so if you're in that energy of wanting to flirt or put your feminine or masculine energy into the world in a way that it enlivens the room or enlivens other people. When you feel you're in on it together,
Yeah.
that's when the magic is really powerful. When you're not doing to spite your partner or to like
Mm-hmm.
hurt your partner because you're not getting something from your
Yeah.
partner. So having the conversation of, hey, like, how do we want to create more aliveness in our relationship? Can we baby step our way towards being more radiant, more
Mm-hmm.
playful? What does that look like? What makes you comfortable? And then when we take baby steps, then your nervous system gets to go like, oh, I'm still safe.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when this is again the Rachel Pringle method. And now my method. I used to be like, let's go all the way and we'll deal with the repercussions later. And I think that's a mistake. And so when you baby step your way, and Gay and Katie Hendricks have this beautiful way of saying, when you expand, you learn to rest in that
Mm-hmm.
expansion.
Mm-hmm.
And then you expand again and you rest in it. So you don't try to rush the expansion. Learn to rest in it, which means your nervous system now, this is the new normal.
Mhm.
You're like, oh, we can like wink at people and that feels good. Next thing, maybe we can like, touch shoulders and that feels good. Maybe next thing is something else. And always, this is the
Yeah.
most sacred.
And I also think too is it's such a valuable, incredible skill to learn as individuals, doesn't matter what gender you are, to circulate your own sexual and sensual energy. And
Mm.
so that you are acting from radiance versus, infiltrating the space or infiltrating the room. There's a very clear energetic difference, and we can all sense it. We have all been to a party where someone is irresponsibly in that energy and it doesn't feel good. And so learning how to cycle that within ourselves and then pour, it doesn't mean we're not, I'm very often at a party in the middle of the dance floor getting it. And I know
So am
that
I.
you are, it's true. And and I can experience people's energy, energies, and I can take it in and I can recycle it into myself and I can pour it into him. Right.
Mhm.
And that is I think, such a valuable tool to, I can experience people's
Sure.
desire or their admiration or their adoration towards me. I can receive it, but without putting it back into them, that's what we're sensing when it doesn't feel safe, when there's an interaction that then, oh, nothing's happening. I'm not doing anything. And you're like, I can feel what's happening, And so learning how to do that and then pour back into each other, we can still fully engage with the surroundings. You can experience that third energy. You can allow it to be super nourishing and revitalizing for just your container. And that's when it becomes really fun and amazing.
Mm.
Mm. Yes. Ooh, I like that. And I like that idea of bring it in and bring it to your partner. And how do you show your partner how to do that? Or invite them?
It's again, like I think these all start with a conversation
Mhm.
and curiosity. Really, if curiosity can be at the forefront of every conversation, then we get to open our container wider and wider. And
Yeah.
then to have, we're at such a beautiful time in our existence where we have so much information, where we have this amazing podcast like this, and amazing books and amazing courses and retreats, and having the willingness to expand and learn, right? I often will teach this in a more masculine, feminine, or couple container, where I used to do it actually with women back in the day. I haven't done that in a while. I'm going to do it again, is to show them what it feels like, because it's so much easier to feel it than to try to intellectualize it. When you can
Mm.
feel it in the space, and that's why I always invite in that awareness. Most of us have had that experience where you've gone to a party and you've experienced someone that is irresponsible with their sexuality, and you can clock back how that doesn't feel good,
Mm.
right? And you can sense like that part of me is experiencing that, and you can clock a person that does feel good, where
Mm.
you've encountered someone at a party who is, you feel them in their full liberation and permission, but they're very contained.
Mhm.
And what that creates in everyone else is a deep sense of safety,
Mhm.
right? So that containment for a man or for a woman or for any being, it allows our nervous system to go, ah, and also like, oh, maybe I can be more of X, Y, and Z because they're showing me what it looks like in a contained, responsible way.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. Okay, so the last question of the podcast, which I want to hear from both of you, is what is one of your favorite romantic memories?
Oh, oh my gosh, I have so many.
I would say that for us, there's so many things to pick from, but like what came to mind for me is like when we were in Bali, and a friend of ours took us to this incredible temple.
Oh,
I think it's the only temple in Bali where you have to be naked. Like
yeah,
you literally cannot wear clothes
mandatory.
in when you go into the holy waters and you receive the blessings. And usually there's a priest there. There wasn't even a priest. It was just our friend Shonda who took us there and us. And it was this incredible, and we just come out of our tantra retreat, and we were so like blasted open and so in love. And then being in ritual together, and is for me something that we do every single day.
Mm.
And then, we are the ones that make the moment sacred.
Mm.
The moment is just the moment, and so I'm loving that we make everyday moments sacred, and the Bali one just stands out because it was just in these beautiful lush mountains and the water, and there we are like making the offerings and naked and praying in the water, and it's just so beautiful.
It makes me think we say very often that like we feel like every day is our birthday and every day is our anniversary
Yeah.
because we really focus. Yeah, that was something that Johan said to me at the very beginning of our relationship. This is when he was like unsure about marriage as well. He was like, I would rather choose you every day than make one choice, you know,
And feel trapped by
and feel
it.
trapped by it. And I really value that. And there's so many different moments, but the one moment that actually really sticks out for me, because it brought on this really deep conversation, was this was years ago. And I was really sick and I was at home and he was out. And I just wasn't feeling good. And he came home and he brought me all of these little treats. So he brought me like this three different of my favorite chocolates and three different of my favorite drinks. And it was so simple, but it made me, oh, it makes me emotional. Oh, baby. It made me realize how much he was aware of what I liked and
Mm.
what I desired, and that I didn't ask him to do that. It was just something sweet and cute that made me feel so seen and received. And he is a person that does that continuously over and over again. So those like sweet moments, it's less because that brought on such a conversation where he in his past relationships his partners kept on saying that he wasn't romantic. And I experienced him as being one of the most romantic human beings I've ever encountered, but it's in a different way. It's like the fact that he set up this whole, podcast studio for us. Like that's romance to me that he's thinking about constantly how to make my life better, easier, more loving,
Sexier.
sexier. Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
so cute. It's so
Oh, thank you.
I love it. Like that's romance exactly. We always think that romance is these like big, huge things, but it's really just the thoughtfulness of knowing that they're thinking of you and caring of you and it's the little moments like that that make it so beautiful. So thank you so much and please share what you guys are offering right now and where people can find you.
You can find us on the grams, Positive Pringle and Herb Johann. And yeah, you can all of our stuff is there. We're doing a beautiful co-devotional love course for couples and for singles that starts February 23rd. It's a month immersive experience. We'll go through so many delicious things that we talked about co-devotional communication, working with our shadow, masculine, feminine dynamics, sexual alchemy, and all of the tools that we have really, cultivated and harnessed and the, secrets to our passionate love. So that's starting soon. And we'd love to have anyone who feels called to come join us.
Yeah, guys, we're so proud of this offering. It's for those, especially for those guys who are maybe not able to work with us one-on-one or
Yeah.
two-on-two. This is an incredible, incredible offering of all of the tools that we share with our private clients and students, because and you learn literally a new mother tongue and how to communicate. That opens up all the doors in your professional life, in your, relationships. It's like learning magic that works. And you're like, how did I not know this? And another thing we have coming up For those of you guys that are really already in the practice of pyramid breath and want to take it deeper, we do have a level 2 pyramid breath retreat in April in Ibiza coming up. So reach out to us about that. It's a very sacred, very powerful, very mystical, very psychedelic, sober psychedelic experience. And it's only for those who are really, really already in the practice. And then what else do we have coming up?
Our next pyramid breath teacher training is in the fall.
Level 1 is in the fall.
Tell them what pyramid breath
Couples retreat.
if they don't
You
know.
what?
Tell them what pyramid breath is if they don't know.
Oh, pyramid breath is basically a practice that was a download that came through.
The practice that saved our lives.
Yeah, it saved our marriage. The practice that it was just a download from the divine. And it's an incredible somatic, wild, sensual, beautiful, tantric way to do, I call it, instead of breath work, breath play, breath pray.
Yeah.
And and the beautiful thing about this practice is you can do it in 5 minutes. You don't have to, carve out like 45 minutes and
3 hours.
And so it's a really effective, really fun, really beautiful way to remember every day that you're not your story, you're not your identity, and that you're a spirit, which is forever creative and powerful. And when we connect with that place, we literally feel like we have superpowers.
And it's really a space to alchemize emotions into mastery. It's a practice that we do every single day. We're so passionate about it. We use it in everything that we do. It's our go-to. So if you're feeling the call, come join us. It's an epic experience.
Highly recommend. I loved experiencing it. It was so good. Then you were mentioning a couples retreat before I cut you off.
Yeah, we haven't locked down the dates yet.
Yeah,
there will be a couple
coming. But
sure. Just follow us on the grams. That's the best way to follow us.
There's wait lists for things if you're interested in teacher training or a couples retreat or women's retreat
or one-on-one
work. All of it is there. And we're however we can ritual and work together we're available. We're ready. We love it.
And there's also, guys, for Pyramid Breath, there's free videos on YouTube. Yeah. There's free videos on Blurbay.
It's a membership that's very affordable. So you have access to hundreds and hundreds of videos that are pre-recorded. So there's all sorts of ways to work with us. We love you. We appreciate you. Thank you for being the change in the world that you wish to see. Thank you for taking responsibility and showing up. Life gets to get better and better forever and ever in a win-win-win formula, guys. And that is the truth. And that is a fact.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, my love.
Thank you so much, Lexi, for having us. Such a joy.
And as a heart snuggler, you're going to get 20% off the code Devotional Love. Just use the link down in the show notes. So this program with Rachel and Johan is incredible. They are such a beautiful, inspiring, authentic, raw, as you just experienced couple who will give you such tangible tools so that you can feel and make a difference in your love life. So just use the link below and you'll get 20% off for being a heart snuggler. And I'm wishing you the absolute best in your love journey as always, because we all deserve to have the most divine love out there. You made it to the end of the episode, so now it's time for our snuggly heart breath of the day. Place a hand or both hands, if it's safe to do so, over your heart and take a big breath into your heart center. Open your mouth and let it go. I'm so grateful to have shared this time with you. If you enjoyed this combo, please share with your besties and your fam. And if you're a visual person like me, fly over to YouTube and watch the video. If you want to do a random act of kindness today, please leave a 5-star review so more people in the world can get their heart snuggled. You're helping tremendously when you do this, so thank you so much. And as a gift for doing so, I'll give you my Soften Your Heart Medi that feels like an exhale and a hug from within. When you leave a review and email me the screenshot to heartsnuggles@alivetoenjoy.com, you can also find the email in the show notes and you'll get the free meditation. Sending you the warmest, comfiest hug and lots of unexpected blessings your way. Remember that every single person just wants to be loved. So how can you be loved today?